In this video, you will learn how to write parallel equations that go through a certain point on a graph. We have already done some work where we were writing equations with a certain slope that went through a certain point. Now we're going to get a little bit more specific. This one says to write an equation of a line that is parallel to y equals 1/3 x plus 4 and goes through the point -6, 3. What we know about parallel lines is that they have the same slope. So we can see that if this line has a slope of 1/3, our parallel slope is also going to be 1/3 because it has to have the same steepness and it has to have the same rise over run in order for them to be parallel. We're going to use the point that we're told, -6, 3. One method you can use is to use the slope-intercept method. To do that, we just use our y equals mx plus b form and plug stuff in that we know. First thing we know is the y, which is 3. You can see the 3 is already written in the y coordinate. The slope we know is going to be 1/3 because it's the parallel slope, and the x coordinate is going to be the one given to us, -6. And I'm going to put parentheses around here so that we remember that we're going to be multiplying the slope times the x coordinate because it's y equals mx plus b. Then I'm just going to solve the two-step equation. So the y coordinate stays the same. I'm going to take 1/3 times -6. If I take 1/3 of -6, I'm going to get -2. And then I'm going to keep solving. I'm trying to figure out what b is. I'm trying to get b by itself. So I'll add 2 to both sides. So that zeroes out and get a 5. So my b, which is my y-intercept, is 5. So now I just write the new equation. I know it's going to be y equals 1/3, because that's my parallel slope, 1/3 x plus 5. And that's the equation of the line that would go through -6, 3 and be parallel to y equals 1/3 x plus 4. The method I just showed you is using the slope-intercept form. There's another method you can use by using the point-slope formula. This is a method that some people might like more. It really doesn't matter which one you like. You can have a favorite. So I'm going to show you this way as well. This is going to be using our y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. We're really going to do the same thing. We're going to be plugging in the information that we know. We know we have our point x, y, and we also know we have our parallel slope. And I'm just going to plug into the formula. So y minus my y coordinate, which is 3. My parallel slope is 1/3. And then my x coordinate is a -6. So it'd be minus a -6, so plus 6. So you got to be careful with those negatives when you put those in. Then I'm going to distribute. So I'm solving the equation. So y minus 3 stays the same. 1/3 x, 1/3 times 6 is plus 2. And then I'm just going to keep solving and get y by itself. So add 3 to both sides. So I get y equals 1/3 x plus 5. As you can see, I got the same answer as I did on the previous one when I used the slope-intercept form, which shows that I can use either of these methods to get my answer. Here's another example. I'm going to use the slope-intercept form again. It's still parallel. It's going to be parallel to y equals -4x plus 2 and goes through the point 1, 6. So my parallel slope is going to be -4. It's going to be the same slope. Here's my x variable. Here's my y, and I'm going to plug it in. So my y is 6. My parallel slope is -4. My x coordinate is 1. Once again, I'm going to put parentheses around that so we can see to multiply. Then I'm just going to solve 6. -4 times 1 is -4. I'm solving for b, so I want to get this to 0 out here, so I'm adding 4 to both sides, and I'd get 10 for the y-intercept. Then I just put it all together. My parallel slope was -4, and then my y-intercept was 10, so my equation would be y equals -4x plus 10. Once again, here's the same problem, but I'm going to solve it using the point-slope formula. So I will do y minus my y coordinate, which is 6. My parallel slope is -4. and then my x coordinate was 1, so it'd be x minus 1. Distribute first, so y minus 6 minus 6. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times a negative 1 would give me a positive 5. And then I'm going to, and 1 second, that is not a positive 5. It would be a negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4. I can get it to right here. And then I'm going to be adding 6 to both sides. So I get y equals negative 4x plus 10, which is the same thing I got doing it the other way. I want you to go ahead and try this one on your own first. Pause the video, and then once you have your answer done, start it back up, and I'll show you how you would solve it with either of the methods. Here's what it should look like if you use the slope-intercept form. You can see I use the y coordinate and put it here. I put the parallel slope here, and then I put the x coordinate here. I went through it, multiplied 2/3 times 9, and got 6, and then I just went through and solved it. So my y-intercept was negative 8. So I got y equals 2/3 x minus 8. If you use the point slope method, you can see that's right here written in red. So I substituted, once again, this negative 2 in for the y coordinate. You gotta be careful because it ended up being y plus 2. My parallel slope is here. My x coordinate is here. And then I just go through and solve it. So I end up with the same answer of y equals 2/3 x minus 8. One last problem. Sometimes instead of being given the equation and the point in a form of a sentence, you might be given it in form of a graph. So we still need to have the point that it's going to go through, and we need to know really what the slope is. If we know it's going to be parallel, we need to know what the slope of the other line is. So you can see right here is going to be the point it's going to go through. So if I look to see what the coordinates of that point are, I'd be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4. So I know it has to go through point negative 6, negative 4. Then I'm going to go to the line, and I'm going to see what the slope is. I can see here's a nice point, here's a nice point, here's a nice point. So if I look at my stairs here, it goes up 1 over 3, up 1 over 3, and it's actually a negative 3. So up 1, negative 3, up 1, negative 3. So my slope is negative 1/3. Once I have that information, I know that the parallel slope is negative 1/3, and it has to go through negative 6, negative 4. Now you just choose which method you want to solve it. Why don't you go ahead and try to solve it? Pause the video once again, try to figure out what that new equation would be, and then turn it back on once you have an answer. You can see that I solved them both ways. So in the green, I used the point slope method, and then in the blue, I used the slope-intercept method. So you can check your work and see, depending on which method you used, check and see if you got the answer. Either way, you should get y equals negative 1/3 x minus 6. And if I actually went from this point and I looked to see where that would be, 1, 2, so down 1 over 3, down 1 over 3. See how this line goes through that point, and it's a parallel line to that orange line. So now you should know you can use two different methods, the slope-intercept form or the point slope form, in order to answer a question like this. You can kind of choose which one you'd like to be able to feel more comfortable with, but you should be able to, at this point, write an equation for a line that is parallel that goes through a certain point on a graph.